ban.
Why do this to me?
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the OUSA Dota League Season 3. I'm your host, 49, the Master Caster, who talks a lot faster, and this is Game 2 of a Best of 3 series in the semi-finals between Fight Club, playing into currently calling themselves the Yoshinators. This is Gucci unit, just having a little bit of fun for their 6th member. Looks like the boys from Fight Club, unfortunately, they really lost the game at the drafting stage. The third pick, Zeus, really blew up in their face, didn't really have a way to effectively deal with Templar Assassin. Coming through from the boys in Gucci unit, especially since they chose to ban out every single one of Bambi's heroes. So he did decide to become the Rat Lord. We are going to be seeing, once again, Pandarian Brewmaster, first ban coming out from them. A supposed definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. This time we see the Sniper ban coming through from the boys in Gucci. The boys from Fight Club actually have first pick this time, so they could choose to actually not ban the Troll Warlord. That could be the case, choosing to ban out the Axe instead. This is going to force the Troll Warlord ban coming out from the boys in Gucci, otherwise they have to prepare their draft around the Troll Warlord. Sam not taking a single chance, and Mule decides to just ban out the Troll Warlord. First pick coming through from Fight Club. They do have access to heroes like the Storm Spirit, as well as the OUSA that are often quite powerful in the later stages of the game. That being said, these heroes often do get countered quite easily, so we could be seeing something like a Lion or a Vengeful Spirit first pick. It is a fairly safe pick because the Vengeful Spirit enables you to pick up heroes such as the Bat Rider later on, and picking up the Lion first means that you can decide to draft the OUSA or the Storm Spirit without being punished for it. So Fight Club, they are delivering a bit for their first pick. They do have a fair amount of flexibility. You often see a trend towards picking up support heroes or the offlaner in the first and second picking stage, just because it doesn't really reveal too much of your draft, it doesn't really give away too much of your strategy yet, and so it makes it difficult for the opposing drafter to sort of preempt or predict what your line of play is going to be. So Fight Club decided to dip into a bit of their reserve time. Looks like they're choosing to go for the Witch Doctor first pick, so this is going to be a KPT style hero. So Witch Doctor first pick coming through from Fight Club. Very powerful defensive support hero, but unfortunately the Treant Protector immediately coming out from Gucci. Treant Protector, one of the most aggressive support heroes in the game. A little bit ironic since he has such defensive capability, but we also see the Phoenix pick coming out from him. So last time they were able to respect ban out Bambi's Phoenix, but this time Bambi's going to be able to give out a Warcry. I believe he will be doing a bit of a car every time he's able to find a kill. So Treant Protector, go start with Boots first, go for an early point in Leech Seed. Lets you play incredibly aggressively at level 1. You just walk up to the Witch Doctor, Leech Seed him, start punching him. Witch Doctor can't do anything, you're literally a tree. You're going to be healing all the damage that he deals back to you. You can even dive towers. Also gives you a fair amount of flexibility because you can choose to go for an early point in the Living Arm and the Nature's Guys to give yourself that defensive flexibility. Fight Club now delivering for their second pick. Now they know the offlane hero is going to be the Phoenix. The way Phoenix is played in the competitive scene in that offlane role tends to be played quite greedy. You tend to go for an item like the Hand of Midas just to ensure that you are able to maintain some kind of item progression in the later stages of the game. Silencer pick coming out from Fight Club and Silencer. Definitely one of the better heroes to counteract the Phoenix just because you're able to provide such a huge amount of zoning pressure as far as the 4 position support is concerned, or even if you decide to run Silencer as a 5, just because you've got the Glaives of Wisdom to work with as well as the Curse of the Silent. Immediate OUSA ban coming out from Fight Club, very intelligent ban coming out from them, just because Phoenix and OUSA is one of the best synergies in the game since you've got Phoenix that force them to prioritize the Phoenix egg, otherwise it's going to explode and stun everybody, and while that happens, OUSA just goes ham, otherwise if you focus on OUSA, Phoenix pops as a supernova and it punishes you both with the Stone Gaze as well as the 2.5 second stun coming through from the supernova. Storm Spirit ban now coming out from boys in Gucci, just because the Silencer is one of the best heroes to counteract Storm, so because you picked up a hero's counter, you could then pick up the Storm Spirit without really being punished too much for it. So Fight Club, they don't want to go for another 60-minute slugfest. They're sick of Bambi deciding to go for some Rat Dota. They instead want to play towards their the playstyle, which is to try to go for these early engagements, rely on Kin, Kill, and Flash to provide yourself that late game assurance, but really excel in the early game stage of the game. Play as aggressively as possible, apply a lot of pressure, knock down these tier 1s and tier 2s, and then look to maneuver yourself into a good enough position for the later stages. Fight Club choosing to ban out the Space Cow. Very unusual ban coming out from them, especially since Space Cow is traditionally run as an offline hero. Can also run him as a 4-position support, but already with the Treant Protector, not really going to be the most worthwhile pick. You also don't really want to run the Spirit Breaker in a Tri-Line scenario or as a safe lane farmer. Doesn't really scale too well with farm, doesn't really need it too much. He's more EXP dependent than anything else. So the Spirit Breaker ban, a little bit of an unnecessary ban, just because you already see the Phoenix as the offlane hero coming through from Boys in Gucci. It can potentially be a 4-position Phoenix, but just based off player information on how Gucci unit like to play, I don't think Guli or Huhu are going to be the ones playing the Phoenix, especially in that 4 or 5 position role. So you have to assume it's going to be the offlane Phoenix in that case. So the Spirit Breaker ban is going to be a little bit unnecessary, can actually bite them in the arse later on, especially because you want to prioritize your bans in the second banning stage to try to shape their draft, just because the first 2 picks, especially if they go for fairly ambiguous picks like the Treant Protector and the Phoenix, it doesn't necessarily give away too much of their strategy. You do have the synergy between the 2 heroes. You've got the Overgrowth into the Supernova, so you lock them in place and you stun them with the Phoenix Supernova. Also have a fair amount of DPS potential coming through from Phoenix with both the Fiery Spirits as well as the Sunray. Slark Respect ban coming through from Gucci unit, even though Kin pretty much decided to carry the game entirely on his own. Slark is going to be a very valuable ban. He was playing from behind, but he was able to go for a farm-oriented build that actually paid off quite nicely. Just a bit unfortunate that the other two cores weren't able to do enough, just because the Zeus is eventually going to get hard counted by the Templar Assassin, both in the laning stage as well as once BKBs come online. But that being said, Ken Killers has raised the difficulty level. I don't need much Slark. Still have access to the heroes such as the Juggernaut. Still hasn't been picked or banned yet. Juggernaut has been slightly declining as far as his popularity is concerned, just because teams are getting better at dealing with him. Gucci unit, once again, going for a very ambitious Templar Assassin pick this early on. You usually see Templars are very surprised for his 5th pick, just because she's a hero that hard counts on the mid, but in return gets hard counted. It's a very one-to-hit relationship. Fight Club choosing to go for UGTFO over in the Centaur Warrunner, so for once we're not seeing UGTFO over in the Clockwork Goblin or the Warrunner. His Centaur, that being said, is pretty good, all things considered. So Centaur Warrunner provides him a massive amount of teamfight potential as well as ganking ability, just because you've got the global silence, so to enable these stampede blink shenanigans coming through from the Centaur. The weakness of the Centaur Warrunner, particularly against the lineup coming through from Gucci, is that Centaur has a very weak laning stage. He doesn't have a way to influence the lane, and he doesn't really have that much of a fallback mechanic. Worst case scenario, you can rotate into the jungle once you've got Tranquil Boots and once you've got a point in return, but even then, you're very slow at jungling. It's going to delay your blink dagger by a significant amount. So Centaur Warrunner, as far as the laning stage is concerned, you pretty much just hug your ankles, sit by the tower, and cry while you leech experience until you eventually pick up enough experience that you can potentially threaten to kill, especially with support rotations. But with the Witch Doctor and the Silencer, the weakness of Fight Club's draft is they actually don't have supports that can rotate that effectively. Witch Doctor, he can set up ganks from Paralyzing Cast into the Malediction, and Silencer, he can do a fair amount of damage, but unfortunately just don't have a lot of lockdown to deal with the Templar Assassin. That being said, the Curse of the Silence coming through from Silencer is a great way to break Templar's refracting charges, so that can be the line of play that they're looking to go for. Now going to be seeing the 4th pick coming through from the boys in Gucci. Spending a fair amount of time dipping into reserve time, they're more than happy to wait this out. All they have to do now is pick up the Safe Flame Farmer, as well as another one of their supports. And Hoo will be playing the Dazzle. So in the Gucci unit, they did say in advance, if they're able to ban Dazzle, they might be screwed, because that's one of Hoo-Hoo's better heroes, and they're not really too sure what other heroes he's all that effective with. Had a fairly suboptimal performance over in the Vengeful Spirit in the last game, just wasn't really good at positioning himself to get that swap off. That being said, Dazzle, you have a bit more leeway just because you've got the Shallow Grave to work with. Of course, the best thing about Dazzle is he's sort of an inverse support. Most support heroes get weaker the later the game goes. Dazzle actually gets stronger because you've got the fact that all the abilities deal physical damage and the Shadow Wave, as well as the Weave, pretty much stacking up over time, especially since Dazzle's actually able to find farm through spamming out that Shadow Wave to clear out the creep wave. Viper pick coming out from Fight Club in the mid lane. So it looks like they're actually going for a very TI4-centric draft, with the Viper in the mid being played by Flash. UGTFO over in the Centaur Warrunner in the off lane, the Silencer Witch Doctor support duo. And then Kin Killer, we could actually be seeing something like a Juggernaut pickup coming up from them. Gives them a lot of early to mid game pressure. Also could even be seeing a late game assurance such as a Luna, just to ensure that they do have some kind of prevalence if they are able to close out the game early on. Luna also does quite nicely with Phoenix, because you're providing that bonus damage to your 2 other range supports, so you're able to poke upon and harass out the Phoenix from lane. So every time you're able to cripple Bambi in the laning stage, so you go for a laning ward, you pick up 2 very aggressive zoning supports, and you cripple his effectiveness, you actually see an immediate Juggernaut ban coming through from the boys in Gucci unit. So Gats sheds a lone tier, one of his favorite heroes. Unfortunately, Gats has been replaced by Henry, who will be playing the role of a full position support. So Fight Club now delivering their last man. They know that Wolfcut has a massive amount of flexibility as far as his heroes are concerned. In fact, this actually could be a Meepo again, coming through from the boys in Fight Club. Just because Viper, as well as the Centaur Warrunner, don't actually have a way to reliably deal with people. You've got too much emphasis on magic damage coming through from them. Phantom Lancer ban actually coming through, very intelligent ban coming through from Paddy there on Fight Club, just because I actually don't have any way to deal with Phantom Lancer, especially the current iteration of Phantom Lancer, which has less emphasis on split push, more emphasis on man fighting, and just being able to apply an absurd amount of damage with that Phantom Rush, as well as the increased illusion generation. So the boys from Gucci unit are ready for their 5th pick. We also could be seeing a hero like a Faceless Void, although Void doesn't really synergize particularly well with the Templar Assassin. They have access to go for Ultra Greed and pick up a hero like Anti-Mage, just because you've got the Treant Protector Overgrowth pinned them in place for the Mana Void. Also have the Phoenix to create space. And Templar already gives you great late game prevalence. They do also have access to Wolfcut's signature hero, the Lycanthrope. Wouldn't be the worst choice this game, because they don't actually have a way to really stop pushes coming through from the line from Fight Club. Once again, boys from Gucci can decide to just go for some Rat Dota all day, every day. Especially since Fight Club, as far as their pick-off is concerned, they're putting all their eggs in UGTFO. So UGTFO is going to be the one to start these engagements, but unfortunately, if he isn't able to find something like a 14 to 15 minute blink dagger, that puts a lot of pressure on the rest of this team to be able to start these engagements. We actually see a Sven pickup coming through from the Gucci unit. Sven has been seeing a slight resurgence in the New Zealand National for the aspect of gaming. Lord Boons was able to play a phenomenal Sven over for the boys in Deterrent Squad Deluxe. Actually able to find something like 700 GPM a minute with a max cleave build, choosing to go for point and stats and cleave early on. Sven does give you a ridiculous amount of kill power, does actually suit Wolfcut's playstyle. Wolfcut, terrible at agi heroes, great at strength heroes, just because gives him that man-fighting mode. With the exception of Faceless Void, who might as well be a strength hero just due to the kind of way you play him. Fight Club, now deliberating for their 5th pick, all they have to do now is pick up a hero for Ken Killer. They do have access to heroes such as Terror Blade, which can take the game late, just because you've got a lot of space creation coming through from Viper and Centaur. Wraith King also would be a very valuable pickup this game, just because one of the best ways to deal with a lineup that has a Dazzle and that has a Sven is just to basically outlast them, so that you say, oh, there's Shelly Grey, that's cute, Wraith King just comes back to life, starts slapping the supports around. That being said, Wraith King does get kited fairly easy, so you've got the Viper and the Centaur to ensure that Wraith King is actually able to get some shots in. So Fight Club, they do have a fair amount of flexibility as far as their draft is concerned. So far, they've gone for a very conventional mid-game centric draft. That's really dependent on them, A, winning their mid lane, and B, also being able to find a lot of farm with their offlaner. So a lot of pressure is going to be put on UGTFO. He's pretty much the pivot upon which the rest of their team really revolves around. If UGTFO isn't able to find his Blink Dagger within a reasonable time frame, the rest of his team starts to fall apart, because they actually don't have a lot of team fight coming through from them. Whereas in the boys in Gucci, you could have Mule go for a Blink Dagger to start these engagements, Phoenix and just YOLO Icarus dive in and go for a Supernova. You've got Treant Protector who could run in with the Nature's Guys to start an engagement, or even Sven could just decide to man mode him, run in with a Warcry, stun somebody and start an engagement that way. So Sven, he's a hero that often looks like we are actually going to be seeing a Luna pick, so Kin, starting to kick it old school. This is actually a very TI4-centric draft to the T, with the exception of the Silencer. Almost every single hero picked up in the Poison Fight Club is going to be a very old school kind of draft. Whereas over in the lineup of Gucci, they've got much more of a new school thing going for them, especially with the pickup of the Phoenix in conjunction with the Treant Protector. With a quick pause coming through from Wolfgang, looks like we're going to be having some mic issues. Going to choose players from both teams. Over in the lineup of Fight Club, Kiora, my flatmate, and filling in for Gath, is going to be playing Witch Doctor over in that 4th position role. Guess he's now filled the role of Jamie. Ken Killer going to be playing the 1 as the safe lane Luna. Luna's going to be a very valuable pickup this game, especially because you have such a massive in the mid-game team fight. Coming through from Viper and the Centaur Warrunner, as well as a huge amount of push potential, because you've got the Nether Toxin from Viper, as well as the Luna Blessing. Flash going to be playing the mid lane Viper, most likely will be playing the Chinese style Viper, where you choose to max out Corrosive Skin, and he's going to be the mech carrier for his team. It's the White Fight Club on the playlist. And it's pretty much bide their time until you get the mech over in Viper, the Blink Dagger on Centaur, then you group up and start smashing down towers. Kim can choose to decide not to go for a BKB early on, and instead go for much more late game centric items, like going for the Cloud9 Eternal Envy style, Mana style into the Hammer Dominator, just to ensure that you pick up a BKB around the 40-minute mark instead. Psyche, he's going to be playing the 4, also could be the 5 position support. Psyche tends to play the 5. In this scenario, I actually would prefer to see Silencer had a less farm priority than the Witch Doctor. Witch Doctor is going to be more valuable as far as the lineup is concerned, just because if you are able to silence a lineup coming through from Fight Club, from Gucci unit, most of the heroes actually don't really care if they're silenced. They've got lots of ways to break it, or they just have ways to still apply damage without their abilities, especially since you've got 2 very powerful and natural BKB carriers in the lineup of Gucci. UGTFO going to be playing the Centaur Warrunner in the offlane role. A lot of pressure can be placed on him this game. If he is able to find a lot of kills early on, so if supports rotate successfully, and if he is able to catch Uru out of position, or maybe Ghoulie, and find himself an easy kill, he could pretty much seal the game for the rest of his team by getting that early Blink Dagger. He's going to be the playmaker for his team, all things considered. That being said, if UGTFO falls behind, which is one of his weakest points, he's actually fairly ineffective at lane control, especially on Centaur Warrunner, who doesn't have any way to influence the lane. If he isn't able to get that Blink Dagger fast enough, pretty much throws the game as far as the team is concerned, because they don't actually have a lot of reliable team fight coming through for them. On the lineup of Gucci, Mule in the mid lane, going to be playing the Templar Assassin, no Mercy being shown, starting with Tangos, as well as additional Tangos being pulled to him, and the Wraith Clan. So this is the build you're going to go for if you're playing against a Viper, just because Viper wins the lane by just slowly nibbling you down. A lot of harassment damage. Wolfgang, going to be playing the Sven. Looks like he's going to be a safe lane farmer, going for a very stat-heavy build. Also, could be an aggro trailing from the look of it as Ghoulie. Going to be playing the 4-position support over the Treant Protector. Phoenix is going to be played by Bambi over in the offlane. So looks like Ghoulie's just going to play some Overward and get the hell out of dodge. He is going for the very aggressive build, choosing start with boots first. So this is the Go Black style build. Fight Club, once again, smoking up his fight. They might actually catch out Hoo-Hoo, who's all on his lonesome. Chose to go for Shadow Wave at 1. You usually want to wait, especially on a hero like Dazzle, before you go for your first skill point, especially because the Shallow Grave is so important. They are able to catch out the Sven as well as the Witch Doctor stand ground for now. Hoo-Hoo, it's a little bit of damage. Needs to get a level 1 kin killer. Looks like Hoo-Hoo's going to be a sacrificial lamb once again. Hoo-Hoo going to be caught out of position, so once again, Fight Club, they go for a smoke rotation, able to find himself an easy kill. Mule not going to be too happy with that, but that being said, not going to be the end of the world for him. It looks like Wolfie, shit talking his own teammate. 2 in a row boys going to be called from Fight Club. That's going to be a very valuable kill for UGTFO to be a part of, especially since he's able to ensure that he's able to get some kind of experience gain. Looks like Bounty Rune was going to be secured by the Templar Assassin as well as the Vipers of Flash. Going to be having a pretty good time in the mid lane. This is a matchup that heavily favors Viper. It's because Viper with the poison attack has multiple ways to break the refraction coming through from Templar. Every instance of the poison will break a charge as a refraction, so once Templar runs out of that refraction, very little she could do. So once again, Mule, he likes going for Sideblade at 1 in matchups where you know you want to apply a lot of harassment damage with Sideblade spillover, especially since Flash chose to go for Nether Toxin at 1. So he went for Nether Toxin at 1, assuming Mule would go for Refraction at 1. So Mule actually mind gaming Flash there. So the advantage is actually being given in favor of the Templar Assassin, just because Templar can actually apply harassment to Flash. Flash can't actually apply harassment back to the Templar without also even drawing creep aggro. Now he has the Poison Orb, so things are good for him. Mule also has a Refraction to work with, so Flash actually eating a lot of unnecessary aggro. This is a very skill-dependent matchup as far as the positioning is concerned for both the Templar and the Viper. If Viper gets a little bit out of position, Templar's able to punch that quite heavily, especially with the Sideblade spillover. You can actually go for a deny right now and do some damage to Flash. Looks like that's going to be in play. So the way Sideblade spill damage works is it's calculated off the armor, the thing that you hit. So by hitting a creep that only has 2 armor, you're dealing 100% pure damage with the damage that you actually spill over. So it's a great way to apply harassment to heroes such as the Viper. Over in the top lane, looks like Bambi actually is going to be a dual lane for now, as Ghouli's kind of just sitting there making sure that way Paddy isn't able to bully him out of the lane. So they are placing a little bit of pressure over on the boys from Fight Club, especially since Phoenix is a fantastic hero at applying pressure to the enemy carrier. Once you're able to start getting those fiery spirit spams going, Mule now has a few more points in the refraction to work with Flash. He is choosing to go for the Chinese style build, max out corrosive skin. In some scenarios, you actually want to go for a max poison attack build against a Templar, just to ensure Templar can't get close enough to you to actually do damage. Especially because otherwise, if you try to play passive against a Templar wins almost every single time. Keeping himself alive, that leads to UGTFO. Diving a little bit too deep, unfortunately, they don't have any follow through. So Wolfie able to create some space for that Stormbolt. Actually holding on to the second skill point, most likely going in for a point of Warcry. Sven is very much a master, jack of all trades, master of none. One of his biggest weaknesses to carry is he needs an absurd amount of farm to be effective in Bully. Snags himself an easy bounty rune. Because he hasn't picked up level 2 yet, it's actually forced to play very defensively. So he really needs some leech experience from Bambi just to make sure he can actually do something. Psychic, going with the Curse of Silence, but Bambi, he just walks it off. He's going to bring up Celius to work with. He could disassemble that to go for Soul Ring or the Tranquil Bits later on. Flash, eating a huge amount of damage from Mule, so excellent positioning play coming out from Mule. Sentry Ward drop, but once again, Mule probably not going to go for a point in Meld. He knows they like to play sentries in. Meld's actually not going to be that effective against the Viper unless you want to destroy the Viper strike coming through from him. And with the Living Armor, very difficult for Viper to bully out of the lane. So over in the bottom lane, we are going to be seeing a little bit of action as UGTFO. He's in a very favourable position. So once again, Wolfie as well as Huhu, very ineffective at controlling their lane. You actually don't see a lot of creep pulling coming through from Huhu. And that means that you're giving a lot of free experience over to the Centaur Warrunner. That's the absolute worst thing you could do. If you can't kill Centaur, you want to passively win the lane by making sure that he's not getting a lot of experience. You want to make sure that he's in this region. This is the danger zone as far as Centaur's concerned, because you've got ganks coming in from all these different angles. He doesn't actually have, he's got a long way to get back to the tower. Whereas within this region, he's safe. Because the only way you can go for a kill attempt is if you dive, and then if you're diving into Centaur under these tower range, that's never going to be a good idea for your team. Flash, continuing to eat a fair amount of damage. As far as last and nice concerned, with the point in Nether Toxin, he is actually beating Mule quite handily just because Mule's prioritizing a lot of harassment damage. Mule really should be looking to try passively win the lane against the Viper just to make sure it doesn't fall too far behind. And looks like Flash, he is going for the Chinese style build, picks up the Headrest very early on, still hasn't used a single tango yet. Is actually able to apply a fair amount of damage over to Mule. Mule looks like once again choosing to forego the point in Meld, goes for the second point Sideblade to give yourself an easier laning stage. Over in the top lane, we do actually see a Sentry Ward to get rid of the Observable placed by Ghoulie, so Ghoulie went for a fairly conventional spot. That being said, this Sentry Ward also catches out the 2 other unconventional Observable placements, so he actually could have just gone for a regular one. So excellent recognition coming through from Psyche. Looks like Kiora is going to be rotating to the jungle to go for some stacking. So good recognition coming through from Fight Club. You want to make sure the supports are always doing something. If you're not actively killing someone or zoning somebody out, you might as well stack up camps, clear out camps yourself, or go for some pull-throughs just to make sure that you're finding farms from somebody else. So he's forced to kind of just babysit the Wolfkin and lane just because you can't be left alone against the Centaur Warrunner. Centaur excels against other melee heroes. We are seeing a potential engagement over the top lane. Haste Room is available. Looks like Mule's able to secure it, bowls that one up. Could actually look to go for a kill against Flash. Flash doesn't have a way to deal with the hasted Templar Assassin, especially since Mule actually has a hell of a lot of damage to work with. But that being said, with the maxed out corrosive skin, you're actually forced to play quite conservatively. You never want to overcommit against Viper if he's going for that max corrosive skin route. He's a hell of a lot tankier than you think he is. He's able to do a lot more damage back to you in return, especially since he's able to get rid of all the refraction charges. Looks like Cyrus in the mid lane, actually after a pretty good start, all things considered. He's making up for the last game where he got completely dominated by Mule as far as last and nice concerned. This time, over in the Viper, able to hold his own. He's actually doing quite well compared to Mule. And Templar is one of those heroes that's dependent on snowballing. If you don't get a really big lead early on, or if you're not able to completely dominate your lane, very similar to the Outward Devourer, you do fall behind quite quickly. Wolfie holding onto a skill point, you could choose to go for point stats or even choose to go for points in cleave. The issue with cleaves, you really need to try max out as quickly as possible, and you need support to actively stack camps for you. Looks like Huhu did go for the stack, so now he's going to go for the pull through at the 15-second mark. Unfortunately, because this other camp's been blocked off, so no safety ward, doesn't actually have access to the double pull through. So excellent recognition coming through from UGTFO, especially since the creep wave is constantly pushing out. So UGTFO just goes for a casual double edge. It's going to force Wolfie to pop that healing stuff to keep himself alive. This is the power of the Centaur Warrunner in the off lane rolling into melee core hero. You just walk up to him and double edge them, there's nothing they can do to respond. And UGTFO, I mentioned that he's going to be the playmaker for his team as far as initiations and fights are concerned. He's actually off to a fantastic start. Usually you expect Centaur Warrunner to have a miserable laning stage and not be able to find anything. All things considered, considering Centaur has no way to actually influence the creep wave, UGTFO is actually doing pretty well with Flash. It's a little bit of harassment damage, but Mule doesn't really want to commit to this, especially because you know the Viper Strike's now online. He pops that haste rune to secure the other room, maybe even looking to go for a pick-off. He's got the side trap to work with, and Henry still level 2. He is choosing to go for the defensive build by going for a point of Voodoo Restoration. He's been stacking out camps because he's trying to go for a mid-stack at the moment, trying to ensure that he's able to find some farm for himself as well as Psyche later on. It's a good recognition coming through from Henry, making sure that he's constantly stacking up these camps. So this is going to be a massive factor, especially for UGTFO if he happens to fall behind, he can just walk and double edge them. So they've got A, the heroes that can actually take advantage of the stacks, and B, they've got supports that are also actively stacking. Especially since King Killer is starting to go right into the Helm of Dominate as quickly as possible, so not only can he dominate creeps, he can also very easily clear them out. Actually very surprised he chose to go for a point in Lunar Blessing at level 4, as opposed to saving a skill point, go for a point in Glaive early on, especially because you know your support's stacking camps for you. That being said, he could just choose to go for more points and the Lunar Glaive from that point on, so just stick with 2 points in Lunar Blessing. So Wolfie, continuing to hold on to that skill point, he has now picked up the Bracer as well as the Magic Wand, standard items for Wolfie, as far as any of his heroes concerned. Psyche, level 4, he's actually finding a fair amount of experience. Ghoulie, that being said, only level 3, and Hoo-Hoo over in Dazzle 4. So Henry's the only one that's kind of slacking as far as experience is concerned, but he's been actively stacking these camps, so all they have to do now is make sure that he's able to leech some experience when they clear them. Mule, realizing that the mid lane's going to be very rough, actually going for some very intelligent stacking over the Ancients. Templar is a fantastic hero at dealing with Ancient stacks, especially if you're able to leech creep aggro. You pretty much keep them in the back end and use your Sidelight Spill to either go for his last hits or Flash. This time he's dominating the mid matchup, but unlike game 1 where Flash didn't have any kind of contingency, Mule, he's putting aside a little bit of gold for the future. So this also can help out Wolfgang, especially if Wolfgang decides to pick up some kind of lifesteal, especially since you choose to go for points to cleave. So Wolfgang's holding up to a skill point, so that way he doesn't want to go for a point to cleave early on, because he does passively push up the lane. So now that once the lane stage ends, or once UGTFO decides to F off and go somewhere else, he can decide to go for a point to cleave, start to go for some stacking, or some clearing. Mule applies some pressure over the Flash, very close towards the mech. We are going to be looking at something like a 10 to 11 minute mech coming up from him. Kira, let's go from observable placement there. We are actually going to be seeing engagement in the bottom lane. Good shallow drag coming through from him. UGTFO, you are not prepared, says Wolfgang. One more rifle coming through from him, and Jared finally able to pull through. Hoo-Hoo, excellent recognition coming through over in the Dazzle, waiting until he used that shallow grave. Wolfie didn't need it necessarily, but better safe than sorry. Was able to turn around that engagement in UGTFO. Bit of biting off a little too much than he could chew. Psyche, they're actually giving the lane to Psyche because King Killer's now rotating into the jungle. I like the recognition coming through from the boys from Fight Club. This is what you often notice teams like Cloud9 do with the Eternal Envy. Over in the hero like Luna, once you stack up camps early on, and you then leave the lane, and it ensures that your greedy support to find some kind of farm. So Henry's actually going to be playing the 5 position support role, or Psyche's going to be playing the 4. Sounds as that scale fairly well into the late game. That being said, both the supports over in the live Fight Club can be the 4 or 5 respectively. UGTFO had a great start, but with that death, has sent him back a fair amount. We could potentially be seeing an engagement coming through from Wolfgang, especially since he's decided to go for a very active build, choosing to go for the jump endurance. Sven's biggest weakness is very slow. Well, he does do a hell of a lot of damage to that big sword. That sword is pretty damn heavy, doesn't do much cardio. So Wolfie's lack of cardio is going to punish him just because Sven's biggest weakness is he's got low time on target. He doesn't actually get a lot of shots on against someone just because it's so easy to run around and kite him, especially with the Viper pickup coming through from the boys in Fight Club. Sven actually can work against them just because Viper's able to tag him with the Viper Strike every single fight. Wolfgang then is going to be sad boys because he doesn't actually have a way to close the distance unless he decides to go for something like a Blink Dagger, and even then, all Viper has to do is stun him. Wolfie, maybe looking to go for a potential amount of aggro against UGTFO, just casually throws out Stormball. Asserting his dominance, he's actually got his boot switched to Agi, so I'm not too sure if this is meant to be intended. I suppose because he had the living armor on, it did actually give you a bit more regen. Now should be looking to switch them to in or strength, depending on what he wants to do. Bambi over in the top lane, actually losing as far as experience is concerned. UGTFO is having an awesome time over in the bottom lane in comparison. Despite that death, Ghoulie, only level 3, actually he's going to be on the final one for the farm. Kira, Henry's going to be taking a death, there's no way out for him, he's going to be a fair amount of damage. Also got Ghoulie now coming in from the side. Psyche, maybe there to provide some assistance. Henry, he's able to dodge one, gets caught with a leech seed. Ghoulie says, I'm a tree, bitch, he's not whacking him down. Henry, unfortunately, really going to be regretting throwing out that Ignite over the tree early on. Ken can actually choose to go for the Eclipse if he really wants to. He wants to wait until he's outside of range of the neutral creeps, now it's too late. Creep wave is there, Ken backed himself away. But unfortunately, had he not drawn that creep aggro, would have been an easy kill against Ghoulie. Mule going in for a stack, but unfortunately that Observer Ward going to block that camp. So now he's aware something's not quite right. That being said, with that double damage rune, Mule, fantastic recovery. Excellent performance coming through from Mule. They are aware he's doing this, but they don't have a way to deal with him. Flash, finds himself a 10-minute mech. So fairly good timing coming out from him. Wolves choosing to prioritize the poison attack before he goes from the point to Nether Toxin UGTFO. Shows up a little bit too late to the party, and Mule, off to a good start. And it's going to rotate back to the mid lane, continue to find some farm. Will be interesting to see what item he chooses to go for this game. We could actually be seeing Mule choose to go for much more greedy items, such as the Yasha, and play much more late game centric Templar Assassin. That being said, with the buff to refraction, so when you take damage, you've got a blink dagger and you've got refraction up. The refraction actually prevents the blink dagger from being put on cooldown. So it's the reason why blink dagger has been seeing a slight resurgence as far as Templar Assassin is concerned. GTFO, the most necessary regen was in his life. It's going to rotate back. Mule actually looking to play very aggressively against Flash. Flash pops that mech charge, and Henry will also then turn things around. Who's there to provide some healing assistance, and with a double healing tower coming through from the boys in Gucci, Flash back himself away. They actually get caught by out same well. Bambi tags him with the Fiery Spirit, and Flash can afford. He can't actually fight now. It's going to take him 3 seconds to get one right click in. Panda doesn't actually have the mana as a Bambi. Unfortunately, casually feeds Ghoulie. Runs in and Henry's. You're not actually healing Flash. You gotta get a little bit closer for that to work. So Henry being very selfish with his heal, kind of sitting there. You need to walk closer to provide that healing assistance. There we go. Flash finds it anyway. Kin now then joining the party, and Hoo. Unfortunately, no mercy's going to be shown. Side traps dropped. Actually, side trap actually be the same. Looks like Mule's able to barely save a support's life. Able to tell out dodge. The Bambi bit, unfortunately, didn't have enough mana to go for the Supernova. That would have turned that engagement. It's a favourable engagement coming up from the boys from Fight Club. As far as golden experience is concerned, if we have a look as far as network, so Flash is going to be leading by far because they are able to shut down the Templar Assassin. So this time, the third pick Templar Assassin coming through from Gucci, not really too sure what the thought process behind that was. It's a fairly weak line as far as the draft is concerned. Actually might cost them the game, very similar to the Zeus pickup coming through from the boys in Fight Club. So UGTFO, now going to be looking to bully out Wolfgun. And Wolfgun, he can't actually be left alone in this lane against Centaur. Centaur goes in, UGTFO might find himself an easy kill. Here comes the Stormbolt. Wolfgun pops out Warcry, UGTFO, not able to get there. Wolfie says, nice try. Maybe looking to turn things around. We do have support coming through from Hoo-Hoo's got the heal to work with, and Wolfie going to rotate back in the bottom lane. UGTFO find himself in this room, can actually look to start the kill in the mid lane especially. Mule, not choosing maxed out their refraction. Now he's got their refraction maxed out. And Bambi, sad boys for him. And just as the Tranquil was to work with, no soul ring yet. Actually holding onto his gold. He wanted to go for the randomize if he's able to do so. And Ghoulie being given the top lane. Choosing to go for double ring of protections, we could be seeing Tranquil boots into something like a ring of Basilius pick up for him over the mid lane. UGTFO catches down Mule. Here comes the Supernova. This is going to be a huge turnaround. UGTFO's going to be taking a death. Mule stands his ground since you come at the king. You best not miss. Flash pops his neck. A little bit too late. Flash being greedy with that neck charge. They can keep chasing if they really want to. Mule it's going to be caught with the last word silence. And here comes Henry. Henry, go pop that. Doing the restoration for your teammates. Henry going to be a little bit stingy with his mana. There we go. Here comes the drive-by coming through from Bambi. And with that, they decide to back themselves away. Mule doesn't want to commit to this. He doesn't have enough mana to really go in. They don't have the living arm to work with. And Hoo also rotating to mid lane. So it's going to be a party here. Did choose to go for a point and weave early on. Weave is going to be incredibly important this game, especially since it gives you a really reliable way to deal with a Kin Killer over in the Luna. Speaking of which, Kin, continuing to go for some jungle stacking and clearing. He's actually off to a phenomenal start. If he'd gone for the second point in the Moonblade, especially since he went for, because he knew he was capped from the second, probably the clear a bit more efficient. So slight misplay coming through from him. That being said, not too big of a deal. Henry's also there to leech experience. So Henry's going to be there saying, give me that glorious experience so I don't become food. Kin should be the clear them eventually. Now we're looking to go for something like a Yasha at this point. Could choose to go for a BKB if you really want to, and if they want to fight the Fight Club. They want to make sure they don't put all their eggs in one basket. Especially since Wolfgun's going for a very mid-game centric build. The Drums of Endurance is a great stat item on Sven. Unfortunately, it doesn't really scale too well to latter stages, especially since so far he hasn't upgraded his Morph Mask. Could be a Mask of Madness. Most likely he's going to be the best item choice for him. Gives Sven a way to actually deal a lot of his damage. Sven's quite tanky with that maxed out Warcry. That being said, it's choosing to go for a very cleave-centric build. Also could be the Helmet Dominator. Helmet Dominator is not too bad over on Sven, just because it gives you a way to stack up camps. It gives you armor, which you so desperately need, and it helps you scale into the later stages with the Centaur build-up. We are going to be seeing a rotation over to the top lane. Bambi doesn't have Supernova, but Henry, I suppose he's not really worth the Supernova at this point. Ghoulie also waiting the way. He's got the Overgrowth to work with. Actually, should run for the Overgrowth instead. Wait for the lead save. Henry, gonna get punched down. Still not using his Voodoo Restoration. You can activate the Voodoo Restoration at any point when you're running. You really need to be a lot quicker with the figure on that one. Wolfgang gonna be taking a death if he's not too careful. Here comes a Vibe Strike and with last one. Hoo-Hoo's there. Here comes the Global Star. It's gonna prevent the Shallow Grave from coming through. And Wolfgang's gonna be taking a death. The last word coming through from Psyche. Excellent awareness coming through from Psyche. Going in for the Global Signs when he saw Hoo-Hoo there. Essentially what's been dropped as well as the Weave. The Weave actually catches the 3. If Mule decides to rotate, they might be able to find themselves a few retaliatory kills. They decide to note the hell out of there and UGTFO. Getting closer and closer towards that Blink Dagger. It looks like it's not going to be the 15-minute Blink Dagger anticipated, but that being said, UGTFO so far hasn't been too bad as far as the performance of the Centaur is concerned. Centaur is a very difficult hero to utilize in the offlane, especially with this draft because you know the supports aren't going to rotate to provide assistance. Usually you draft Centaur with the implicit understanding that supports will rotate to the offlane. So because you don't actually have any support rotations this game, he's done the best he can. Kin, going to be eating a hell of a lot of damage from those Fiery Spirits. So this is the Tara of the Phoenix. He can even choose to go for Hand of Midas if he wants to go for Ultra Grip. Did almost pay off in the last game, so it could be the line of play coming through from him. Bambi, speaking of Ultra Green, choosing to go for the Midas. So Phoenix really needs a Midas because A, it gives you the experience that you desperately need to pick up the level 3 Supernova as quickly as possible, and it also actually helps you scale as far as items are concerned, since Phoenix's biggest weakness is he's very powerful in the first 20 minutes, but past that, very dependent on items. Flash could be a BKB coming through from him, also could be the Aghanim Scepter. Both of the items are very powerful in the Viper, especially if they want to go for a very mid-game centered lineup. Going for the BKB over on Viper and the Luna around the same time, as the Blink Dagger comes in line for UGTFO, enables them to pretty much steamroll these early engagements. In UGTFO, they really have to try to kill him again. He's getting too close to that Blink Dagger for comfort. Wolfie completely sacked the lane, he's farming the jungle now, very similar to Kin. Kin's also sacked the lane just because he realizes he can't deal with Bambi constantly poking and bodying. Deciding to now rotate into the jungle. Looks like it actually has been stacked quite heavily, so this is going to be a very valuable amount of gold as far as control is concerned. Still hasn't dominated the creep yet, so both the carry players can getting a little bit too close to comfort there. Those ancients do a hell of a lot of damage. He really wants Henry though, provide some assistance. So he actually didn't dominate the creep, so never mind. Kin, getting a bit smarter as far as his efficiency is concerned, making sure that he's able to stay relevant. Especially since Luna's one of those heroes that can get 6 slotted very quickly. Since you've got that flashbang mechanic of the Moonglaives. Luna's excellent at reaching high ground just because you've got the glaives and not only help you clear out the creep wave, but also bounces once you breach the tier 3 tower. Henry, once again, could be the sacrificial lamb. Mule's blinks on top and says surprise. Here comes with the restoration, not going to be enough for Mule. Just 2 shots in with that Mel strike coming through. Mule showing off that blink dagger, also has a haste. Absolutely nothing Henry can do at that point to keep himself alive. Kin, he should be the final of the ancient attack with not too much difficulty. Looks like he is choosing to go for almost like the mana style purchase on him. Some European players like to go for an SMY over on Luna, such as Hani, and they like to go for a mid-game centered Luna build to phase into SMY to Master Madness. Nowadays, you usually see Luna, especially in this kind of capacity, played much more as a safer, old-school hero. Especially since Fighters already have all the mid-game assurance, and what they really need is some late game. Just to make sure they can keep themselves behind. It's like Treant as well as a casual now Talisman picked up on him. Looks like he's going for some aggressive observable placement in the jungle. Blink Dagger picked up by UGTFO, so 17 in the Blink Dagger, not too shabby, all things considered. Especially since they could apply a bit more pressure to him. Especially since so far Fight Club have been breaking fairly even as far as kills concerned. As far as net worth and gold, it's going to be a more or less even match of both teams. Gucci as well as Fight Club, completely equal, slight EXP advantage coming through from them. Just because they've been finding experience with more independent. Henry hasn't really been finding an awful lot of fun, spent a lot of time stacking. Kim might be taking that tail on tower with immediate TP rotation coming through. Mule waiting in the wings. Unfortunately, that tree being broken is going to reveal the position. Side trap comes in, UGTFO can actually look to go for a blink hoop stop. Maybe looking to pincer off Psyche. Psyche, that creep is going to reveal his position. And Ghouli's holding his trail. He's got the leak seed, the workload flash, now rotating the fight for assistance. Goes in for the global silence as well as Stampede. Psyche actually standing his ground for now. Here comes the Viper Strike over on Bambi. Bambi pops the Supernova into the Overgrowth. This is going to be the fight they're looking for. They might be turning things around. Deathward comes through from Henry, going to bring down Ghoulie. It leads to the Supernova stun, catches out Psyche as well as Henry. Here comes the Icarus Drive-By coming through from him. Wolfie comes in, wants to go for the Storm Ball, not able to get off in time. Shallow Grave not there in time. Weave is there. One more right click over on Psyche, but unfortunately Psyche are able to keep themselves alive. And Fight Club, they're doing it. Hoo-hoo, running it all on his own. Trying to turn things around. Hoo-hoo, got one against the world. Unfortunately, it's going to get called out by UGTFO. So the boys from Fight Club able to take a commanding fight. Puts them in an excellent position. And Hoo-hoo, very sloppy position coming through from him. No idea why he decided to yellow in like that. I suppose he thought with the weave he might be able to find himself a pick-off, kill that Shadow Wave. But excellent positioning coming through from Psyche, really turning that engagement around that global silence. Even then, the boys from Gucci almost turned it around with the Overgrowth into Supernova. Just very unfortunate they didn't have enough damage to deal with Henry's Deathward that early on. So Ghoulie has picked up the Soul Ring. Not really too sure how useful it's going to be once the game moves to the later stages. He does have the Living Armor to work with, so he can at least make it very difficult for them to try and knock down these towers. He really should be armoring this tower up. Ghoulie, what are you doing? The reason why you drop the Treant Protector is to make sure that the Living Armor should never really be off cooldown. It should always be used, just to ensure that your towers aren't taking that much damage. So it's going to make it very difficult for the boys from Fight Club once again to try to close out the game. So Gucci, they can just decide to go for some Red Dota and some Flip Push, since that seems to be their biggest weakness. Flash, backs away, here comes Paralyzing Cask. Unfortunately, Cask was used on Ghoulie instead of over on Mule. That being said, Mule has the melt to work with. In that case, it might have actually even been better to stun the creep, just to ensure that you'll get the stun off over on Ghoulie. Psyche, immediately dropping sentries, going in for those side traps. And Henry, good turnaround play coming through from that Death Wall in that last engagement. Looks like he's going to be the Woodfish for now on Mule. Once again, just going for some stacking. Looks like he's going straight into the Desolator to ensure that he's able to get as much damage as possible. Constantly scanning out those side traps on Mule. Very active player as far as the Templar Assassin is concerned, always trying to apply as much pressure as possible. Flash. Looks like he is choosing to go for the Aghanim Scepter, so it gives you a fantastic team fight. Viper is one of the best Axe carriers in the game, just because it gives you that 12-second cooldown, and much more importantly, the 950 range. Since Viper's biggest weakness is he's very slow, so it's very difficult for you to actually get that first hit. Once you actually hit someone, they're usually dead because you keep chasing them. But until you get that first hit in, very easy for them to just run around you. Mule, just able to clear out that creep wave, Fuhu, chipping in his 2 Centaur, and so the ancient stacks actually when taken by King Killer. Excellent recognition coming through from Fight Club. This is the best possible scenario for them. So we could be seeing a potential engagement coming through. Everyone's going to rotating in, huge TFR. Going to be not there yet. They do have full songs to work with. Here comes the overgrowth from Ghoulie as well as the Supernova. Great level start for Ghoulie. Going to be taking a death from King Ghoulie. Pops that BKB. Wolfie, unfortunately, waiting against Henry, but Henry dropped that death blow. Panther going to be taking a death there. Bambi, one more right click, never mind. Supernova comes out a little bit too late, but the egg is going to be taking a fall. Wasn't able to tag with the Fiery Spirits, and Mule not able to do an awful lot in that engagement. Now forced to take it to retreat, maybe not to catch up VGTFO. Mule able to find himself one, could actually look to blink down and catch Kiora. Henry, way on his lonesome, really needs to activate that Voodoo Restoration if he wants to keep himself alive. And Huhu, once again, going to be caught in the position. So it looks like we are going to be seeing four-man white keep the boys in Fight Club. Mule's going to be the only man standing as all things considered. Pretty significant advantage being gained by them. Fight Club, their mid-game standing lineup, all Pistons are firing. They've put themselves in a very favourable position. They should be the knockdown this tier 2 tower. Wolfguard, this is the fundamental weakness of Sven. He requires a massive amount of farm to really go blow for blow against other carry heroes, especially since he chose to go for a very greedy build. Would have liked to see him actually choose an actual raw grind scenario, just because you know that Fight Club is starting to go for his face rush style playstyle, especially with the mid-game centered blast. So that's going to maxing out a Warcry with many difference as far as dealing damage concerned. Looks like pizzas arrived, so for those of you in the crowd, enjoy yourself, and for those of you on Twitch, swing by the St. David's with some free pizzas, with some good yarns, cool. Maybe looking to go for some aggressive plays against Flash as well as Henry. Fortunately, he's all on his lonesome. Looks like he's choosing to go for the Agnum Scepter, so Ghoulie going to be doing his thing. Should be able to keep healing up this tower. There we go. So it looks like all the tier 1 towers for now. We kept Hell and Hardy. They have lost their tier 2 tower. Wolfie did choose to go for the Blink Dagger, but because he went for farm-centric items, would have made much more sense if he decided to still farm into the Master Manager instead. So this is the weakness of Sven. You have to kind of commit to either farming or fighting and just stick with what you do until you get big enough to pretty much walk over the entire enemy team. Mule looking to apply a bit of pressure over the UGTFO, but he just blinks the hell out of there. UGTFO choosing to pick up the cloak of the Planeswalker's Cloak. Not too sure I agree with this. Would have actually preferred the Blade Mail, especially because you know that Wolfgun, he's not picking up a BKB anytime soon. Blade Mail can heavily punish him. Or even go for a BKB of your own, just because it gives you a free double edge. So he's going to be the one picking up a Pipe of Insight. Pipe is one of the worst items in the game as far as EHP is concerned. Actually, in this game, it doesn't make any sense. You've got physical damage coming through from Gucci, predominantly, with the only real magic damage going to be the Supernova and maybe the overgrowth of the Agnum Scepter. Other than that, everything else is going to be physical damage. So the Pipe, it gives you less EHP than the mech does. You don't actually need it this game because the Creep Wave is going to die anyway. They've got physical damage from the Shadow Wave. And the biggest issue of the Pipe of Insight is you have to pop it before things get messy. So it doesn't give you the ability to react to the enemy aggression. So it's not going to be that great of a pickup this game. Actually very surprised UGTFO went for the Pipe of Insight. Actually could pay out into Boys and Gucci in its favor, because otherwise you basically wasted 3.5k net worth. So we could be seeing a potential engagement over in this lane. Not able to find anything. He's able to nip away that tower. He has picked up that Desolator though, so he's getting bigger and bigger. We do see some Ancients being stacked and cleared out by Kin. Kin now has the Mana Style to work with. Kin's currently fine. It's like after the King, we're going in for a pizza break. We are seeing engaging against Ghoulie. Ghoulie's going to be taking death point if he happens to Fight Club. Putting himself in a fantastic position. They should be able to knock down the tier 1 tower as well. They don't really have a way to reliably defend this tier 1 tower without releasing the overgrowth. Wolfguard actually going to be interrupted with the Lunar Blessing. Here comes the Eclipse from Kin. Kin goes mana and mana, blows apart Wolfguard, wobbles through the jungle to start knocking down the tier 2 tower. And Gucci putting himself in a very awkward position. They don't really have a way to recover at this point. They've put themselves so far behind. Their core heroes need too much farm to really go blow for blow against the course from Fight Club. The mid-game center draft is really paying off for them. That being said, signs of life being shown with UGTFO's ineffective item build. Would have much preferred him going for something like a BKB. Even the Heavy Templar would be a very valuable item, because you know Mule doesn't want to go for a BKB unless he's forced to. Kin's going to be leading the charge. They could actually look to take this tier 2 tower, even back away and go for Roche if they really want to. They've got a fantastic punch for taking Roche, a lot of physical DPS coming through from Luna, especially with the Luna Blessing. So Luna, very similar to the Troll, excellent at providing push potential. It's like Ghoulie actually tried to go for some QC living out plays, unfortunately they're going to instantly lose the charges. So able to find himself using tier 1 and tier 2. Mid-game center line coming through from Fight Club, really paying out. 7,500 gold going to their hands, actually looking at about 9,000 once that tower was calculated. Same thing for They should actually be able to knock down this tier 3 tower. They don't really have a way to reliably defend this. Going to be able to set things up. Let's try with the weave. Here comes the Viper Strike. With the having Scepter catching up Bambi. Bambi loses a hell of a lot of damage just from that Viper Strike alone. They might just take that tier 3 tower. That being said, they're now in the danger zone. They've lost a hell of a lot of armor. But you do see potential damage from Ghoulie. Ghoulie goes over a huge overgrowth. Catches out 3. Where's Bambi coming through? Neil jumps it over on King Killer. Forces the BKB. Here comes the split. The Death Wall's tearing apart Wolfcon. He just gets caught down with a double edge. Mule is fleeing for his life. Here comes Bambi going for the egg. Fortunately, he didn't actually get any fire spirits off. The egg's gonna pop. Bambi gonna take the attack. UGTFO, he's gonna be the sacrificial lamb for Spike. Fight with his own flash. Tags Mule with the Viper Strike by Ghoulie. Goes into the lead team. Not able to get off in time to loosen Pete. King Killer able to interrupt him. Also taking down that Hoo-Hoo. Shallow Grave himself. Where was the Shallow Grave earlier? Now gonna be taking a death. Looks like it's gonna be a set of racks going to the hands of Fight Club. And Fight Club decided pizza is enthusing them. They want to close out this game so they can eat. Should have taken an easy set of racks. This actually could be a game set and match for the boys in Gucci. They're playing too fast and behind. Ineffective item choices coming through from Sven. Not really giving them a lot of effectiveness. They're going to be losing another set of racks. They've only got buyback on. Mule can't defend this on his own. Still have neck at the ready. King Killer's at full HP. He's got Man Style to work with. Now the Priest high ground. Sustain coming through from the bit of restoration. Looks like they've got some cheeky plays coming through with the Wildling Aura. But they're going to be losing 2 sets of racks this early on. And the boys from Gucci, they don't really have a way to recover this time. They don't have the split pushing capability to be able to turn things around. Here comes looking at a great 3-man Stormbolt, maybe trying to turn things around. Flash. It's a little bit of damage coming through from Mule to Fire Spirit tag. One more right click might be enough. Here comes another great overgrowth from Ghoulie. Henry as well, they get clubbed down. They are able to find themselves 2 kills. So Fight Club bunny if a bit more than they can shoot, find themselves 2 very necessary kills, and then almost able to bring down Psyche. Wolfie just casually sends that Stormbolt all the way to the fountain. So Paddy, you got a little bit of a surprise coming through. FedEx call, they've got your package for you. Paddy never sees this one coming. Never mind. Looks like the FedEx courier is drunk. Supplies off the map. Somebody called FedEx. Bambi. Looks like he has finished the Yule Scepter. The Yule Scepter is actually not going to be all that effective this game. Would have actually preferred if he'd decided to go into the Shivas or the Sheep Stick. That being said, it's a desperation item. You're playing from behind. You need any item you can get to give yourself some semblance of an advantage. Wolfie, until he gets to BKB, he's going to instantly die to King Killer every single time. And even then, you've got the Death Wall to work with. So not maxing out that War Cry really punishes them. So would have liked to see Wolfcant play ultra greedy and just not be engaged. Just choose to actually max out the lead, not go for any more points in Stormbolt after 1. Just to ensure that you're able to basically scale better than Luna and make sure you've got some kind of item parity. Because if you're playing from behind as a Sven against Luna, you're in for a pretty rough time. Luna just laughs at your face, especially if you put work with. So King Killer now most likely wants to go for something the Butterfly. Once you get to Butterfly, they pretty much can't touch it. They don't have a way to reliably kill the Luna, even without the Butterfly, so the Butterfly just makes it damn nigh impossible. Kin, phenomenal performance coming out from him as far as his gold per minute is concerned. 639, so looks like he's off to a pretty good start. Ghoulie. He will eventually finish that Agham Scepter. Unfortunately, the Aghs isn't really going to have that much impact this game just because they've lost so much map control already. They've lost so many of the towers, they can't afford to go for some split push flash. He wants to close out the game as quickly as possible. He's hungry. SMY, you usually only go for an SMY on a hero like Viper if you want to try to close out the game within the next 5 to 10 minutes. Otherwise, the SMY not going to be that effective. That being said, Mana Style on Viper also not really the greatest item as well. It was mostly picked up just to give yourself that destroying capability. So Hoo-Hoo, to be caught out position by UGTFO. UGTFO, here comes the last one into the double edge. Hoo-Hoo should be taking it. He just stands there saying, make it quick. Psyche finds himself another kill. Psyche, phenomenal performance coming up from him this game. 6-0 for 6, the Spirit Breaker ban, even though it wasn't necessary. I suppose it's just to ensure that he doesn't get rolled with the Spirit Breaker like he did the last time he dropped that silencer. Could be another set of racks falling for the boys in Gucci units in Fight Club. They're in the driver's seat. They've got everything they need to try to end the game as quickly as possible. UGTFO, still not too sure I agree with the pipe charge, but that being said, doing a fair amount of work into Wolfie. Wolfie turns around, War Cry wants to go in, here comes the Sunray. UGTFO just runs out with the Stampede. And once again, they're shedding some tears. While it's happening, Bam, looks like Mule's able to find himself an easy kill against Henry. They are going against Wolfie. Wolfie's going to take a death. One more right click coming through. Hoo-Hoo, where the hell is the Shallow Grave? No Shallow Grave coming through from him. Ghoulie, great overgrowth, but unfortunately Ken, he just pops the Mana Style, just says sup. Ghoulie's not going to be taking a death. One more Lucent Beam coming through from Ken. A few more seconds. He should be able to ensure a kill against Ghoulie. One more Lucent Beam. Viper Strike's not enough. Ghoulie, selfless player, tries to go for the Living Arm and somebody else before he dies. He does go for that buyback, but it's going to be a second to the racks falling. And Kin, this is the power of the Luna once you've reached high ground. The glaives push everywhere, disables blink daggers, it just accident nuisance, it actually kills support heroes on the farm. Flash, 2 sets of racks go into their hands, now pinging out Roshan. Gucci, they're not actually in a good enough position to recover at this point. We're looking at about 20,000 gold lead going to the hand of Fight Club, as well as about 12,000 EXP lead. Once they secure Roshan, it's going to further escalate. Especially since Kid actually chose to go for a harder Taras. So he just wants to become as beefy as possible. Now he's going to be the Aegis carrier for his team. Luna can pretty much go 1v5 at this point. It's going to be very difficult for him to kill him. Henry actually found himself an Agnum Scepter during all of this. Even though Henry's got the most death for his team, Moon Feeder, he's going to be the one still walking around with an Agnum Scepter, owing to the fact that they're able to find so much tower gold. Bambi, even though he did find it reasonably early, he had a minus all things considered, just hasn't had that much impact. The instant he goes in for the Supernova, the Mana Style illusions, as well as the Focus Fire from the rest of the team, is able to bring this Supernova egg. You want to make sure that as you Icarus drive by, you tag people with Fire Spirits. So throw out your Fire Spirits, try catch 3-4 heroes, then you want to pop Supernova. Unless if it's a desperation point to buy space for somebody else. Mules going for the split push, unfortunately they can't really rely on split push because they're 2 racks down. And Fight Club, they can afford to seed a couple of tier 1 and tier 2 towers and just barrel down the mid lane. They don't actually have access to the Bambi Rat that they used to. Bambi's still doing his thing, that being said, trying to do as much rat as possible. Phoenix just doesn't have that much split push capability. Looks like the Courier. Meanwhile, just casually got sniped out. Ghoulie, because of that buyback, nowhere near that Agnum Scepter coming through from him. Wolfgang is getting fairly close towards that BKB, but even then, the Viper Strike's going to completely cripple the effectiveness of Sven. So the Sven pickup, not too sure I agree with this. Doesn't actually give you that much benefit. Cheeky plays coming through from Kin Killer. Mule's still able to ensure that double damage rune. Kin almost finds it in Ghoulie. Turns around the Panic Leech Siege, just trying to do as much as possible. So Mule, he's got that double damage to work with, has the Death Flare. He's at least able to push out the creep wave. But unfortunately, Templar is not going to be enough damage in these engagements, especially because the way the Fight Club have dropped it. They've got 5 very tanky heroes, especially since you've got the Healing Aura coming through from Henry. You've got the Mech Charge, you've got the Pipe to Insight Regen. And Psyche, he's spilling towards the Agnum Scepter. He's only got the 4-star. The 4-star is going to make it so difficult for Mule to find these quick pickoffs. So they are going to be able to knock down that tier 2 tower. They decided to split push. But it's going to be pretty favourable as far as Fight Club's concerned, because all they have to do now, they know that they're going to be forced to stand back, to go back to the tier 3 tower to try to defend. Tier 2 tower's going to be forward, and now they're going to try to close out the game and go from negative. RIP Yoshi, rest in pepperoni. Should be able to take out this tier 3 tower without too much difficulty. Very difficult for boys from Gucci to really respond to this. Weave being thrown up by Hoo-Hoo, so that could be the window of opportunity we're looking for. Trying to reduce as much harm as possible. Don't have to kill the Gucci already. Here comes a Viper Strike, here comes play coming through from Mule. Mule's able to find himself an easy kill. He's that Mel actually doing a lot of work in conjunction with that Weave. Wolfgang, I mean, walking in, he's not that BKB to work with. They're able to find himself another kill. Ken finds himself 2. Mule might be able to find himself a kill against King Killer. Here comes another Mel Strike, they've got a Blink Dagger coming through. Fortunately, Psyche stands his ground. Here comes a Viper Strike over from Wolfgang. Wolfgang going to be taking a death. Flash stands his ground, kites him to days. Ken walling around the tree line, trying to keep himself alive as long as possible. Mule decides he can't really afford to go for this engagement. Using DFO, finds himself 1 Bambi. No Icarus drives by, no Yule Scepter, finds himself another death. Looks like we're going to be losing the later racks. Should be Mega Creeps. And the boys from Gucci going to be losing game number 2. Using DFO, catches down Mule, fantastic play coming through from him. Mule stands his ground. Might be to find himself a retaliatory kill, but Ken, a trade tit for tat. And looks like base race is to be the play. Should be GG well played. They decided to call it, so it looks like it's piece of time. Game 2 going to the hands of the boys from Fight Club. Looks like we're going to game number 3, boys. Once again, draft is really going to be won and lost by the fact they chose to pick up the Templar Assassin. The 3rd pick as opposed to the 5th pick. And the Sven pick, especially owing to the fact that you've got a Viper being played by the Fight Club, kind of counterintuitive. So the game really was determined by the drafting stage. Excellent draft coming through from the Fight Club. That being said, very old school draft, but very consistent. So now we're going to be taking a quick break and we should be right back in about half an hour or so.